When you're ready to step up to a pair of custom axles from Moser Engineering, it only takes a few minutes to gather the information you'll need to download and fill out the order form. You'll just need to take a few measurements and answer a few questions in order to ensure your order is crafted to the correct specifications. We'll take you through the process of filling out the Moser order form step by step. This document will record all the critical measurements for your axle shaft order. Before you begin, you'll need to get a tape measure, a straight edge, a marker, and a pair of dial calipers in order to measure your existing axle and housing. Once you have your equipment, you're ready to get started. The first piece of information you'll need for the order sheet is the type of axle housing you're ordering. Is it a Ford 9-inch, GM 12-bolt, Dana 60? If you're having trouble identifying your axle housing type, the experts at Moser are available via telephone at 260-726-6689 during business hours. Once you've identified your housing type, it's time to do the same thing for the housing ends. The order form shows the most commonly used ends, and you may be tempted to simply compare the illustrations to your existing ends. This is a bad idea. Year-to-year manufacturing variations, an axle housing with aftermarket ends, or a host of other factors can cause misidentification. To positively identify your housing ends, measure the spacing between the bolt holes both vertically and side to side, and compare your measurements to the ones shown on the order form. If you've already removed your existing axles, you can also measure the diameter of the opening where the bearing sets for extra confirmation. You can compare this to the housing ends on the order sheet for confirmation of the most common types. With the housing and ends identified, it's time to measure the axles themselves. Because axle shafts may not be the same length on both sides in some applications, you may need to repeat the measurements for both the driver and passenger side. Measure from the outside face of the axle flange to the end of the axle shaft using your straight edge to get the dimension correctly. Note that this dimension doesn't include the raised hub pilot in the center of the axle flange. Measure only from the outer side of the axle flange. This is dimension C on the order form. Next, measure from the inner edge of the bearing stop to the end of the axle shaft using the straight edge or square, again to ensure accuracy. Be sure to measure from the bearing stop itself, not the radiused edge. This can cause your measurement to vary by as much as a 1/16 of an inch. This is dimension K on the order form. Repeat the process of measuring C and K on the other axle and write them down on the order form as well. Now with the bearing removed, measure the distance from the outside of the axle flange to the inner edge of the bearing stop. This is dimension B on the order form. Using this dimension and adding it to the K dimension is a good way to double-check yourself. These two dimensions should add up to equal the C dimension. If they don't, you need to double-check your measurements. Measure the outside diameter of the axle flange and record it as dimension J. This is especially important for disc brake applications, so your axles will properly fit the brake rotors. Using dial calipers, measure the outer diameter of the hub pilot and record this as dimension A. This measurement is important for a proper fit for brake hardware and wheels. Your order form has a space for the bolt circle and stud size, as well as whether you will be using press-in or screw-in threaded studs. If you don't know or aren't sure, Moser Engineering customer service is just a phone call away to help you determine what you need. Using your dial calipers, measure the diameter of the bearing seat of your axle shaft. This is dimension H. Finally, count the number of splines on your existing axle. Use the pen to mark the top of one of the splines as a starting point and simply count your way around the axle. Record the number of splines on the order form. If you're upgrading to a differential or spool with a higher spline count, put the appropriate number here. As always, let us know what carrier you're using so we can match the pressure angle of the spline to your carrier type. With the order form complete, you're now ready to request a pair of custom Moser Engineering axle shafts built to your exact specifications and shipped within 2 business days. For more information, call the experts at Moser at 260-726-6689 or visit moserengineering.com.